and I welcome in Coach Bobby Bowden. Coach, I hope you're doing well, sir. Thank you again for joining us on a special day here in Tuscaloosa.
Well, I'm glad you called me because Coach Bryant was my idol as I got into my coaching career.
Certainly, he made an impact on a lot of our lives. Talk about the impact that he was able to make on you and not only your off-the-field but on-the-field career.
Well, I was raised an Alabama fan ever since my dad used to drive me. I was raised in Birmingham, and he used to drive me down to Tuscaloosa to watch Alabama play. And every time they came down to Birmingham, I always watched them, And so I was aware of Bear Bryant. Now, in 1958, he came to Tuscaloosa to the University of Alabama. In 1959, 1 year later, I went to Howard College, which is now Stanford University, as a head football coach. So while he was building those championships down there in Tuscaloosa, I was able to watch him. In fact, I used to drive down every spring and watch them and talk to Gene Stallings, they were young coaches back in those days, and Jerry Claiborne and all that crew. And then I felt like that's where I got my knowledge of football, from watching them.
Coach, as we look back and reflect on your career, did you ever catch yourself doing things that Coach Bryant either said or maybe the way that he did certain things?
Every day. Hey, you're darn right. I copied him. I would go down there and watch them practice and take my notebook and write down what I saw, and then their assistant coach would help me. They would tell me things they were doing and why they were doing them and all of that, and I was able to watch them. And so, I put note after note in my books about what I was seeing down there in Alabama. And so there's no doubt in my mind I did my best to copy his approach to football. I didn't try to be like Coach Bryant because I couldn't, but I did try to use a lot of his methods and the methods of his coaches.
Coach, certainly I want to talk about maybe the motivation because he could take those B players and make them play like A pluses, those C players and make them play like B. What was it about him that allowed those players to play so hard for him?
Well, number one, they all had the utmost respect for him because he was such an impressive looking man. He was big. He was bigger than everybody. And he had that deep voice. And when he spoke, it was like, boy, this must be coming from heaven, And so everybody looked up to him. And then he had the ability to make you think you were good. I mean, he took boys that maybe some other schools had turned down. Not many, because he recruited the best. But he would take guys that wasn't very big, and he could convince them they were better than the guy they were going to play against, And so they hardly ever lost.
Coach, let me ask you about that expectation, the pressure like it was for Coach Bryant, like it was there at Florida State, like it is here for Nick Saban. How do you not cave into that pressure when your goal is a national championship every single year? And if you don't reach that goal, it's sort of like a little bit of a disappointment.
That's a very good point you bring up, pressure. Here's what I found out. I coached 57 years. I started right there at Birmingham at Stanford University. I coached 57 straight years, and then I retired. Now, once I retired, all of a sudden I couldn't believe it. Where's the pressure? I didn't have to worry about grades. I didn't have to worry about the boys getting in trouble. I didn't have to worry about recruiting that great player. I didn't have to worry about driving all night long to go see a prospect. All of a sudden, the pressure was off. Now, I coached 57 years and did not realize I was under that pressure. Now, that's you could say the same thing for Coach Saban. You could say the same thing for Coach Bryant. They don't realize the pressure they're under until they get out and are relieved of it.
But, Coach, when you look at it, I mean, Alabama had a great year this year, 14-1, a chance to take a freshman to be able to play in a national championship game. But for the last 3 weeks, we've sort of held our head down low here in Tuscaloosa. It's sort of like hosting a funeral for the last 3 or 4 weeks because of the disappointing loss. That's just a lot of expectation to live up to.
Well, hey, every year there are 131A schools out there. Every one of them want to win a national championship. Every one of them approach their team. Man, right now, before the season starts, everybody is undefeated. We want to try to win a national championship, and yet only one can win it. You know it? And nobody has done a better job than that at the University of Alabama. I don't know if anybody has more national championships, football championships, than Alabama. Notre Dame would have a bunch of them. I don't think they have as many as Alabama. And so, yeah, the expectations are that way every year. I'll be honest with you, I don't see how they handle the pressure. I don't see how Saban handles the pressure as well as he does. In first place, following a guy like Bryant's nearly impossible. And he goes in there and wins, 4 national championships?
Yes, sir.
It's unbelievable what he's done. And, of course, this year here, I know, because we nearly did the same thing. There were so many years where we finished 11-1 or 10-1. Of course, back in those days when I was coaching, we didn't play as many games as they play today. But we played for 5 national championships, and we won 2 of them. So the other 3, you're so disappointed to have a great year and then not win that last one. But there's no way anybody can take away the value of what Alabama did in those other 14 games that they won.
Coach, when you look at the wins over your career, there's 377 of them. Is it the wins, the big games, or the losses that sort of keeps you up at night? You're thinking about reliving, rehashing, trying to guess yourself. I should have did this, should have did that. What sticks out? It's the wins or the losses?
Losses. The wins. Everybody's happy and everybody's patting you on the back. But when you lose, it kills you, And you want to find out, what did we do wrong? What must we change? We've got to do better the next game, And so there's a lot of pressure on that. And so I always felt like the losses hurt a lot more than the wins cause happiness. It's hard to get over losses.
Is it fair to put Coach Saban in the conversation with yourself, Bryant, obviously Frank Leahy, other great coaches? Is it fair to put Coach Saban in that category?
Yeah, if you're not careful, you have to put him ahead of us. He's surpassing everybody. People always ask me, because they know of my love and admiration of Coach Bryant, said, who is the best coach? Who's going to be the best coach when this thing's all over? Is it Bear or is it Saban? And I said, well, it's hard to compare right now. I said, well, no, you can compare. But I said, let's wait till Saban finishes his career, and then we will know. Has he had? It's probably not fair to say who's the best coach. It's what's the best, who has the best record, And so let Saban finish his career, and let's add them up and see what we think.
Coach, what stands out to you about Coach Saban and what has led to him being this successful?
Well, the thing that's number one, just the success that he shows, the national championships he's won, the national championship games he's played in, his record everywhere he's been, and then the thing that amazes me about him, he loses coaches every year, and then he replaces them and still has the same success. Therefore, you have to say the reason of their success starts with Nick Saban.
Coach, I'm just curious, when you look back at your legacy of football, obviously you've written several books about your career. I'm just curious how you want to be remembered as a coach.
Well, I'd like to be remembered as one of the best, not the best, because I wasn't the best, You like for people to say, well, he did it right. He didn't get on probation. He didn't cheat, and he did it right. His kids became successful and things like that. And one thing I did when I was coaching, I used to advise younger coaches: don't let football be your god, because you're not going to win all your games. And you're going to be miserable if you do. Get your priorities in order. And football is not number one priority. Now, that was my philosophy. God comes first with me, and my family comes second. And then somewhere down there, football comes in. To me, football is the way God gave me to make a living. And I made a very good living coaching football for 57 years, and I'm thankful for it,
Coach, something that we do, and certainly I try to do it here on this program, is try to bring my faith into this program. I know I'm on a station that is, we're not a Christian station, we're just a public station. But I'm curious, looking at a state-supported university, you were so successful at integrating your faith within your football. I mean, Mark Ricks came on this program and talked about, I believe, the day that he accepted Christ as his personal Savior. Talked about the story there. I mean, you were so successful at that. Give us some hints on how you pulled that off.
Well, it's the way I was raised. I was raised in Eastlake. I went to Woodlawn High School. Then I went to Alabama. Then back in those days, if you got married, you couldn't have a scholarship. Well, I got married as a freshman, so I transferred up to Howard College, where I could get some work since we wasn't in a conference. And I went to school there and got my education there. But anyway, I always was taught that we were supposed to be witnesses for Jesus because I was a Christian. I was raised a Christian. That don't mean I'm a good guy. Don't think Bobby's saying how good he is. I'm not. But I am a Christian. I am saved. And so I did not want a boy to leave my program without knowing about Jesus. And you say, well, how'd you get by with that? You were a state institution. Well, I took my boys to church, not every Sunday, but every year when our boys would report, I'd take them to a white church. Then the next Sunday, I'd take them to a black church just to show them they were welcome either way. Now, how did I get by with that? Well, when I recruited them, I told them I was going to do that. And I told their parents. And the parents appreciate that. Parents, they want to know somebody's going to. I used to tell the parents, I said, look, when your boy comes to Florida State now, I'm his daddy, but you're not going to be up here with him. And I'm going to try to carry on just like you did, because I know how it is when you get away from your parents and you go to college, first thing you do is you quit church. I say that's kind of typical of kids. Then you find a way to get them to go back. But so anyway, I did, but how did I get by with it? I think the fact that I told their parents I was going to do it, and I also told them, if you don't want me to, I won't. And I did have I had two families in my 34 years at Florida State that asked me not to include their son, and I didn't. I didn't make them go with us, But I think I know that, and by the way, they were Christian people. It's just, I think they were afraid I was going to try to go into my church. But I never did take them to my church. I didn't want them to think I was trying to get them to go to my church.
Coach, can you share the story the day that Mark Rick came in your office? Because it's my understanding that was around a tragedy there at Florida State. And can you share that story with us?
Yeah, we had it was 1986, and we had an open date at Florida State. It must have been around October. We had an open date, so I let the boys go home because we had a week off, and I told them to be back Sunday at 2 o'clock. And so some of the boys lived so far away they couldn't go home. And this boy I had couldn't go home. He lived in Miami. By the time he got home, it'd be time to turn around and come back. So he stayed on campus. He went to a party Saturday night and got in an argument with the little bitty guy. This guy, my player, was a big 6'5", 280-pound offensive lineman. Got in an argument with some little kid, probably about 5'8", 150. It was a verbal argument, and so the little guy went home, got a shotgun, came back and shot him, killed him. Well, so the next day I told the players we're going to have a meeting at 2 o'clock in our team room, and so the next day at 2, The whole boys who had went home came back. I had them all in the meeting room, and they were, some of them were very teary-eyed, and they wondered what am I going to tell them. And I pointed at the empty. I had one empty chair, is where Pablo always sat. And I told them, I said, "Hey man, where's Pablo? He was here yesterday. Where is he today?" And it gave me an opportunity to talk to them about life after death. No matter what your age, you're not going to live forever. And I gave them a good preacher too. And then I went back to my office, and then I closed the door and went to my desk, and so I knocked on my door. It was one of my assistant coaches. He came in and says, "Coach, what were you talking about?" In other words, he didn't know all that. He hadn't heard that. And so I explained to him. I had my mama's Bible on my desk. She died, and I got her Bible. I had it on my desk, and I read to him what he had to do to be saved. And right there, he accepted Christ as his Savior. And he's one of the finest Christian men. That's been nearly 30 years ago, maybe longer. He's one of the best examples of what God wants of any man I know, That's the story you're talking about.
Yes, sir, I am, and that's a great one, no doubt. Coach Bowden, thanks again for being part of our show here in Tuscaloosa. We certainly appreciate you coming on and talking about your faith, but also talking about Coach Bryant, as we are going to spend the next 3.5 hours just reflecting on what he was able to accomplish. I mean, he made an impact, and, it's pretty amazing. I hope I'm remembered 34 years after I pass away and still making the impact on so many different lives that he's made over, and I'm sure you have the same players that.
Oh yeah,
it's amazing.
I tell you, a lot of times I can't realize he's dead. It's been 34 years. It seems like it was yesterday, but many times I'll be doing something and I forget he's gone. Because I looked up to him so much and tried to copy so many of his ways of coaching that I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. It's a great event.